Guys, I'm going to be talking about artificial intelligence as my senior lecture. We're going to talk about some goals. So I'm going to talk about the definition and the history of AI, look at how we're using AI currently in our workplace, talk about some possibility of the future of AI, give my thank yous, and try not to cry. All right. So the first question is, what is AI? So I asked ChatGPT, I thought it was appropriate. So what is AI? And it gave me this answer. So AI basically stands for artificial intelligence. I love the kind of like non-academic answer. Like, it's basically like the science and technology of creating machines or software that can think, learn, and make decisions in ways that in some cases resemble human intelligence. Now, that's a great answer. I've also seen artificial intelligence kind of defined in this way, where artificial intelligence is kind of this overarching idea that includes things like machine learning, which is computers that are trained to learn patterns from data and make predictions or decisions without being explicitly programmed for every specific task. A further subset of machine learning is deep learning. This is machine learning that uses artificial neural networks to perform more sophisticated tasks and can improve and learn from the data over time. Other things that kind of fall into the artificial intelligence but aren't shown on this is things like computer vision, things that can take images and kind of collect patterns and identify certain objects. Robotics, like the freaky thing that does a backflip, that's part of AI. Natural language processing, such as translations, Google Translate, stuff like that. This is kind of what a neural network is supposed to depict. On the left, you have kind of input layer, which is kind of whatever input you're giving to the machine learning. In the middle, you have these things called hidden layers, which are supposed to resemble neurons and kind of synaptic connections. Every little circle is considered a parameter, which is like one little weight of information that could be used to kind of interpret whatever input you're giving it. And then at the end, it's called the output layer. That's kind of at the end, whatever task you assign that machine, that's what eventually, after it goes through the hidden layers, it comes out with an answer. Okay, so I prefer the history of AI and kind of as a simple way to understand how we got to where we are now. So this is a picture in 1956 of Dartmouth College. This is the first conference of artificial intelligence. This is actually when they coined the term artificial intelligence. So this is a group of mathematicians, computer scientists, linguists that got together, and at the time there were these ideas of like cybernetics, automata theory, and complex information processing was what they kind of described this idea of, like, how can we make machines think like a human? And that's really what they at the end just got down to. They brainstormed to, like, how can we start thinking about machines getting so smart that they act like human beings? Then in 1997, jumping forward a little forward, does anyone recognize this? So on the right, you see that's Deep Blue. It's a chess computer that beat Russian chess grandmaster Garry Kasparov in May of 1997. So the input for this machine was positional changes like E2 to E4, but really it worked on a binary code of zeros and ones that represented chess pieces, chess colors, whose turn it was, and kind of where they were on the chessboard. As you can see, you can't see the human operator, but there's a human operator on the other side who basically input all the information into the machine. And then basically it just did brute analysis of kind of the possible moves, and then it gave the best answer. Some people say that it didn't actually beat Garry Kasparov, but it confused Garry Kasparov because it made a move that Garry Kasparov didn't really anticipate. And so he basically doubted himself and made a lot of mistakes after that. Does anyone recognize this? Yeah, Watson. So this is IBM Watson. In 2011, he played against Brad Rutter and Ket Jennings in Jeopardy and won. Now the input for this is now natural language processing in the English language, but it required very specific prompt engineering in the sense of kind of like Jeopardy. You have a question. It's usually pretty short. However, IBM Watson, even though it won, it got a lot of questions wrong. It failed to kind of analyze the full text of structure. And if a question usually had a comma or needed to correlate two things in a sentence, it usually couldn't find the context and the relationship between those two ideas. Finally, in 2017, OpenAI is the company that made GPT. 2017, they made the first large language model. Large language model is basically a type of artificial intelligence model that understands, generates, and basically works with the human language in a text format. We spoke about parameters, those little circles that are supposed to be kind of neurons. It had about 150 million parameters, and it was trained on a bunch of unpublished books that they found on the internet. 2 years later, they updated to GPT-2. At this point, they had 1.5 billion parameters. That was trained on Reddit posts and basically a slew of internet sources. It could have been put in the ChatGPT as we know and love, but they thought it was too dangerous. They were like, it's going to be misused. Humans are bad. And so what they did is they hired this company in Kenya for scientists just to read the internet and basically trim and prune all the bad stuff in order to make AI safe for us. So while AI knows how to rob a bank, it's not going to tell you how to rob a bank. ChatGPT came out in November 2022. It was now the third iteration of 3.5 of GPT. It had about 200 billion parameters. It was fed Wikipedia sources, and basically more and more of the internet was going into this ChatGPT. Finally, in ChatGPT4, the latest iteration, was released in March of 2024. The difference now was that this large language model was not only using text, but videos, audio. You could use it on your phone. You can take a picture of things. You can ask it voice recognition things, and it would still usually put out things in a text format. It updated to also include images, as well as text, as well as audio, as well as video. So that's where all those AI-generated songs came from. Those AI-generated deepfakes came from, and kind of the Studio Ghibli images that we all know and love. So how are we using creepy AI in the background? So I'm sure you guys all recognize this, Power Mic Mobile. This is a voice recognition. It's a very simple AI, just basically voice recognition to text. It doesn't do any interpretation of your text. If you say something wrong, it might type it out wrong, right? For me, past medical history, it says prime ministry every time. So I have to either pronunciate better or speak slower. I don't know. What about this? Avo MD. Any downstate people been using it? No? All right. This is kind of the reason why I started thinking about AI, because Avo MD is a new software that is being launched at downstate. A little different than Power Mic Mobile. It is still a voice recognition to text, but it does some sort of algorithm where it basically incorporates evidence-based medicine, clinical scores, and makes it basically an MDM for you based on what it hears. It probably goes to a cloud is what my understanding, which could be a problem for HPI and kind of things like that. But they published, and I say published, on their website, a survey done at SUNY Downstate, which said that 88% of clinicians surveyed rated the AI positively for integration and usability, and 78% of clinicians reported an improvement in work-life balance and overall well-being from using the AI. And we got a pretty good review. This is on their website from our chief of medicine. Does anyone recognize this logo? Viz AI. So Viz AI is a image AI that is being used. It's been rolled out at Kings County for the last 18 months. I spoke to Dr. Law about it because I recognized that we were using this for all our stroke codes. So whenever you do a CT angio, specifically under the stroke work set, Viz AI analyzes those head and neck angios, and it looks for an LVO. Speaking of Dr. Law, it sounds like it has a good sensitivity and specificity for the anterior circulation and the middle circulation up to M1, and it seems to have a little difficulty after that. And she says it's pretty poor for the posterior circulation. Apparently, it has improved our metrics or door to growing time of less than 90 minutes for patients that have a large LVO that should get some sort of endovascular procedure. And it sounds like Dr. Law is optimistic that this is going to get better, but it sounds like it is causing an impact on our patient care.
I think that's pretty typical for computer stuff because garbage in, garbage out. We have trouble reading posterior circulation. So the computer does too. It's totally not surprising.
Yeah.
That's like.
What about this? Is anyone using this? All right. Yeah, so open evidence, it's technically, not something that's through our institutions, but open evidence is an example of a narrow AI. Basically, most of it is narrow AI, meaning that it kind of does one task and one task only, but it's even more narrow compared to like ChatGPT, where Open Evidence is a AI model that was trained on peer-reviewed medical literature like PubMed and most major journals, and it has the nuances and kind of the style of a medical provider. I personally really like using the right home care instructions, especially in Spanish, just because I understand Spanish, so I can read it and know if it's right or wrong. But it gives really good patient education, especially in areas that I feel like we don't have a good already template in Epic or Downstate. So that's kind of how I use it, but you can use it in a lot of different ways, ask it clinical questions, or just differentials is also a great one. I had a guy with eosinophilia, and I was like, what is the differential for eosinophilia? Cool. All right, so looking into the future, I'm going to talk about an AI that I think will be coming to an ED near us. So I'm going to start with this study. So this study came out in February of 2024 in the Journal of Journal of Electrocardiology. It was kind of like a proof of concept paper with the goal of developing a deep neural network AI that could interpret EKGs in 6 major categories, which included rhythm, axis, ectopy, chamber enlargement, conduction abnormalities, and ACS. This kind of like looking back at a deep neural network, this is kind of what it looked like. Basically, what it did was it had an input layer of the EKG. Usually it took the 5 seconds of either the first 5 seconds on the limb leads or the last 5 seconds of the kind of lateral leads, V1 through V6. But I like thinking a bit like this. Kind of this little AI that was trained on 932,000 EKGs from an international cohort that then had to basically be trained and modeled based on those. When it looked at how the AI did, it tested it on 4,000 EKGs, which was had the expert consensus of 2 cardiologists for a standard reference. What they found is it had a pretty good specificity and sensitivity when it came to analyzing those 6 criteria. See, on the right, you see something called an F1 score. So an F1 score is a metric used in machine learning to assess a model's accuracy, precision, and recall. A number close to 1 is considered perfect. As you can see, it gets pretty close, but it does have pretty high scores when it comes to F1. I know what you're thinking. You're like, we already have something that interprets EKGs, right? So computer interpreter of EKGs is done by this company called Marquette 12SL. It was a company that was established in the 1980s. It was bought out by General Electric. And it's considered kind of like a rule-based logic algorithm. The idea is that you give it this instructions and it kind of just follows it blindly. And compared to our deep neural network, it's not going to learn from the data that it's receiving. It's not going to recognize patterns. It's just, does it fit the rules that I have been instructed to? Yes or no. And obviously, you have a lot of mistakes and stuff like that that can occur with it. So what they did is they basically looked at this deep neural network, this AI that they built, and they're like, how good is it compared to what we already have, kind of the standard that is already out there? And what they found that in a subgroup analysis of the 6 categories, they said that the new AI was superior in 13 categories like rhythm recognition, such as looking at pace rhythm, atrial fibrillation, atrial flutter. And I found that it was not inferior in the rest of the categories, which included things like high degree blocks, axis evaluation for left and right axis deviation, which our computer interpreter is already pretty bad at. So they felt pretty confident. They're like, you know what, our AI is a lot better than this old AI, which is not really AI. So what they did in March of 2024 is you recognize some of the same names. This is kind of like a group out of Belgium, but the goal of this study was a retrospective study, was to develop an AI model that could recognize acute MI from a single standard 12-lead EKG. So what they did is they trained this AI in kind of this new paradigm, which moving away from the STEMI paradigm of evaluating for acute myocardial infarction and moving into the OMI paradigm. So Mr. Miyagi here is represented by Stephen Smith. He's one of the leaders of kind of EKG interpretations out of Hannibin. And what they did is they trained it in kind of this definition of an OMI. Basically, they found that, there's a lot of these STEMI equivalents. And after a while, they were like, there's too many STEMI equivalents to just think it's just STEMIs that we should be thinking of. And so maybe we should shift our focus away from the idea that someone having an acute myocardial infarction is either STEMI or non-STEMI, and moving into this idea that we should recognize some patterns beyond that. What the AI model was trained on 18,000 distinct EKGs from an international pool as well as an American pool, which included patients that went to cardiac cath. It also medically treated patients, with the primary goal as determining if the patient had a culprit lesion or OMI. So the OMI was defined as a culprit lesion having a TIMI score of 0 or 1. And what they found was this. So STEMI criteria is basically that old algorithm that we had before, the rule-based algorithm of is it a STEMI or is it not a STEMI? And what they found is that the AI model had a pretty good sensitivity and specificity when it came to detecting OMI from a single standard EKG. The STEMI criteria, pretty low specificity, pretty low sensitivity, pretty good specificity. And then the EKG experts actually were Stephen Smith from Hennepin, and Pendle Myers from Stony Brook, two of the leaders and kind of advocates for this new OMI manifesto and kind of OMI paradigm that we're in now. It was tested on the 3,000 EKGs with obviously correlating cath results and either medical treatment or the cath finding the occlusive myocardial infarction. So from the confidence of that study, they did a prospective study that was published in November 2024. This was a study, I have a lot of problems with the study. It doesn't include where the study was done, and it doesn't really include a lot of the data besides just kind of some graphs. But basically what they did is over 10 weeks, they looked at 700 patients that presented to either 2 EMS groups and a peripheral community hospital with atraumatic chest pain. And the idea was that they would get a 12-lead EKG, and then they would get evaluated using the AI model called Queen of Hearts, which is available in a app like it is shown here. And basically, if the app said, "Hey, this person's having an OMI," they would be referred to a central PCI hub. Now, patients also presented to the hub that got evaluated with the AI model, so they use that as well. But what they found is this: out of 142 patients, 23 met the primary. 142 patients out of the 700 were admitted or hospitalized for concerns of ACS or OMI. And what they found is 23 of them met the primary outcome of OMI. And the AI model had a 94% sensitivity to determining an OMI. Compared to the ECG model, it was statistically significant with a sensitivity of 47 for the EKG machine. They didn't really explain this emergency physician statistical difference, besides just inferring that maybe they weren't using the AI model, and that's why there was a difference between the AI-assisted emergency physicians and just the AI model itself. But what it found is that in 15 cases that the EKG misclassified as false negatives, it was properly classified as positive by the AI model. Now, there are some pitfalls with kind of this AI. One, it doesn't look at the EKG in a clinical context. That kind of still falls down to us. Two is, what's the medical legal precedent for AI being wrong? So unfortunately, whenever AI or computer interpretation as we have it now, when that's wrong and we act on a wrong tool, it falls on us. We're the ones that get sued. We're the ones that suffer the malpractice. So there's already a precedent that even if we use this AI, if we don't use it appropriately and we don't evaluate the patients ourselves, that we would be the ones that bear the legal responsibility for any outcomes. And it's already been cases where the AI falsely interprets atrial fibrillation from someone that's shivering, gets started on an anticoagulation, they suffer a major bleeding event, and then the physician that unfortunately trusted the interpretation is the one that's to blame. There's also a lot of conflict of interest. Obviously, this is a AI that's being developed by a specific group called PM Cardio. And so we need more evidence out there, more prospective studies to evaluate and externally validate this AI model. But I think there are some future uses for this. I think in the emergency department, for triage, as you know, signing an EKG is kind of one of the biggest interruptions and kind of things that kind of get in the way of patient care or even like presenting to physicians. So maybe it could be used for that. It could be used in EMS like it did in the prospective study of having a patient being evaluated with atraumatic chest pain, getting an EKG on board, and having it run through the AI model and then divert it to a PCI capable facility versus the local peripheral ED hospital that doesn't have those capabilities. And this is kind of my thinking, maybe a little bit optimistic, but maybe this AI could find patterns and look at a new paradigm past the OMI one that we have now, right? At the end of the day, we started with the Q wave paradigm. Basically, a group of physicians looked at EKGs and were like, these Q waves start popping up whenever someone has a heart attack. And after that, we started looking at the semi paradigm. We're like, you know what? Also, before the Q wave started, we get this ST elevation. So maybe we should start looking at that before. And now we're into the OMI paradigm, which is like outside of the semi elevation, there's a lot of other patterns that we can recognize as being a cause of OMI. So who's to say this new AI won't recognize patterns that maybe will take us years to develop, right? So as it's fed all this information and it comes back with patterns, and we obviously have to validate it and be the ones to train and prune and kind of make sure that this AI is doing the right thing. Who's to say it's not going to become the next leader of the next paradigm? That's it for that. So I'm gonna give my thank yous now. I'm glad the music starts. So I want to start with my family. Oh, geez. Specifically my mom, Christina, and my brother, Mateo. My mom, she raised two kids. She got me and my brother both through college. She got me through medical school, mostly by herself. So I do this to honor her, to respect her, make her proud. I want to also thank my partner, Sophia. She's been through parts of medical school, all of residency so far. She's been a great rock. Some of my med school friends, David and Brandon, Yvonne in the corner, and then of course everyone here. Kind of a second family, one that was given to me, but one that I loved and learned to really respect. Basically everyone. I really appreciate it. And I'll be taking questions.